With so much talk of healthy foods and what you should be eating, the foods that are the worst for us can get overlooked. The reason it's so hard to avoid these kinds of foods is because the things that make them bad also make them taste good. Fatty foods typically taste good, so do sweet and salty ones, which means a lot of the foods you love are likely not the best things you can have. But you don't have to resort to living like Tom Hanks in Castaway. There are plenty of foods that you can turn to that taste amazing and won't jeopardize your well-being. It's about learning why certain foods are bad so you can make better choices on a day-to-day basis. That being said, here are some dietary landmines to watch out for and step around. A new study published in the journal Preventing Chronic Disease revealed that 84% of packaged foods that listed 0 grams trans fat on their nutrition facts label still had partially hydrogenated oil, the main dietary source of trans fat, in the ingredient list. Current laws allow companies to round down fewer than 0.5 grams of trans fat per serving to 0. The good news? The amount of trans fat we eat has dropped in the past 30 years, according to a recent study published in the Journal of the American Heart Association. Men are consuming 32% less trans fat and women 35% less than they were in 1980. Still, 1.9% of men's daily calories and 1.7% of women's daily calories come from trans fat today. The American Heart Association recommends limiting trans fat to no more than 1% of total calories consumed. Even a few daily grams of these fats increase bad cholesterol, decrease good cholesterol, and clog arteries. And Harvard researchers estimate that trans fats cause up to 228,000 cases of heart disease and 50,000 deaths annually. Since 2 grams is the most you should have in a day, allowing food with 0.5 grams or less to call themselves trans fat free is a real problem. Simply said, you're best off avoiding trans fat containing foods completely. I'll also show you some quick examples of food rich in trans fat that you might not even be aware of. The first is non-dairy coffee creamer. Half a gram of trans fat in creamer can quickly turn into multiple, since consumers tend to use more than the serving size of a teaspoon per cup. And the typical American coffee drinker guzzles an average of 3 cups of joe per day. On many zero trans fat labels, you can find partially hydrogenated oils as the second or third ingredient listed. The second one is peanut butter. Some companies use partially hydrogenated oils to achieve a long shelf life and creamy texture, so check the label. To be safe, opt for the natural variety. Although it's chunkier, it's also healthier and normally made with just salt and peanuts, not oils loaded with trans fat. You might think that avoiding usual pizza is good, but frozen pizza is equally bad. Trans fat sneaks into the dough of many frozen pizzas, with about 0.3 grams in just one slice. San Diego mother of 2 Katie Simpson sued Nestle for $5 million last year over the use of trans fat in its frozen pizzas sold by DiGiorno, Stouffer's, and California Pizza Kitchen. The case was dismissed since she knowingly purchased and consumed the pizza. One solution? Make your own pie at home. Popcorn's unhealthy as well. I know it's your Friday night movie staple, but microwavable popcorn puts the spotlight on trans fats. The true culprits are the toppings. Butter flavoring can include 0.5 grams of trans fat per serving, while caramel flavoring can contain as many as 1.5 grams. Some extra buttery varieties can have up to 15 grams of trans fats per bag, which is all too easy to inhale in one sitting. Stay away from the microwave popcorn, says Napoli. Just do the old-fashioned air pop or use an actual oil to pop the kernels in. You might love them, but packaged cookies are the devils. Even the beloved Girl Scout cookies still sneak some trans fat in despite a label that says trans fat free. You may be able to justify those because they only happen a few times a year, but check to see if your favorite store-bought cookies are made with partially hydrogenated cooking oils. Chances are they are, including Chips Ahoy and Keebler, although some brands like Oreos now use high oleic oils instead so they can provide shelf-stable cookies at a reasonable cost. Lastly, margarine. Margarine consumption boomed during the butter shortages of World War II, with even Eleanor Roosevelt promoting it as her toast topping of choice. But it's a recipe for trans fat overload. To create the creamy spread, liquid vegetable oils are blasted with hydrogen. The more solid the margarine, the more it's been hydrogenated. Many labels claim to have 0 grams of trans fat, but if the label lists partially hydrogenated oils, those small amounts of trans fat can add up when you slather margarine on your food.